Hi guys, welcome back to Two Worlds Collide podcast. On today's episode, we have Simon Jones, an Australian Army veteran with multiple deployments to East Timor, Solomon Islands and Afghanistan. In 2010, while attached to 2 Commando, Simon faced one of his toughest challenges yet. It was a time marked by relentless operations, mateship forged under pressure, and the tragic Black Hawk crash that rocked the Australian military community. This episode isn't just about what happened overseas. It's about the mindset that it takes to do the job, the cost of service, and how those moments stay with you long after you hang up the uniform. I hope you guys enjoy. Mate, I seen that thing about ballet and I was just like, where did this come from? Like, I want to know who pushed it from the top down and who was giving that directive or order to post it. And then who were they influenced by? Because, like, mate, ballet for veterans.
Where they said, righto, who's got a good idea? Let's put on ballet for veterans. But you know what? There could be some that want to go do ballet. Like, good on you. Like, sweet. If you're limber enough to go and do that, good on you. But once again, why does that 0.005% get to speak for the majority of us? Like, the silent majority is getting pushed around by, like, the loudmouth minority. Is fucking out of control.
Mate, I thought that was the weirdest thing ever. When I seen what was it, RSL Queensland?
Yeah, RSL Queensland.
When I seen them give out free ballet dances for veterans struggling with PTSD, I thought to myself, holy shit, this is the current world we are living in. And I've been posting lately about some of the things that I just giving commentary on some stuff, and you've seen it. You know, over the past couple of weeks, it's gained a lot of traction, and a lot of people were being like, "Yeah, I think I like this guy's content. This is right." And I'm just giving an honest opinion. And mate, one of those RSL giving out free ballet dances for veterans struggling with PTSD, I thought to myself, is this a fucking attack on men masculinity? You know what I mean? Like, is this where we're really going with it? Like,
what's the thought process behind that decision? Like, where did they sit there and did they go through, righto, what is it the veterans need? You know, because I've never been rung by RSL Queensland and said, mate, you're a veteran, what do you need? Like, RSL Queensland's never done that. And especially with all the cash they bring in from their pokies and all their other shit that they got going on. Like, if you're going to hand out money, like, who's getting the kickback from the ballet people? Like, who convinced the RSL? Like, I've only done 5 trips. I haven't seen as much combat as other people. I haven't done a lot. But the last thing, I can't bend over and do my shoelaces up without doing a hamstring, let alone in a tutu doing ballet moves.
Yeah, mate, to be honest, I reckon it's this massive DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion push, and it's this garbage agenda that everyone's trying to jam down our throats, going like this, like, fucking get it down there. Yeah. And we're all just like, mate, we don't want it. We just want to have, especially for veterans, just give us a place where we could go fucking maybe bowling or something on the afternoon. Yeah. You know, something where we can just
bowls.
Yeah, barefoot bowls. There you go. Perfect. Have a couple beers, get around talking, hang out with some veterans, rather than put your fucking tutu on and walk around on your tippy toes. Like, mate, a lot of veterans I know, they just want to hang out with their mates and they don't want to be embarrassed about getting in tutus. Like, this, mate, and like, wrap my tinfoil hat on right now. This is me. This is me talking very freely. I honestly think stuff like this is coordinated from the top down to, you know, try and tear down this masculine man, you know, in Australia at the moment. You know, you can't do this, you can't do that, and, you know, trying to get us to be more feminine. And it's like, that doesn't fucking work.
Pay for my gym program, pay for my supplements, let me go and just do arm curls in the squat rack and then go and have a cold plunge and a sauna afterwards. Like, let me pick how I want to spend. Like, this is RSL funded. Who signed off on this check to go and do that? You know, and like, I think it was at Soldier On. They used to have, they'd put a boat in the Sydney to Hobart sailing. So what would that be? $500,000 boat, $1 million boat? Does one race a year. They spend all that money for, what does it take, 9 people? What does it do for the rest of the time that it sits there? Like, there's homeless veterans everywhere. Like, you know, there's something like saw something the other week. There's 180,000 families in Australia at the moment on any given day that are at risk of being homeless. But
Wow.
we're sending billions of dollars overseas in foreign aid. We're potentially sending peacekeeping troops to the Ukraine, spending billions of dollars on weapons and equipment, but we've got 180,000 families currently in Australia that are at risk of being homeless. I mean, like, don't quote me on those figures, and if anyone takes you to task over it, like, happy to be stood corrected. I wish it was none. But why are we spending money on other people's wars when we've got homeless veterans, homeless families? There's kids that are homeless. Like, kids that are going to school with not the right school equipment or shitty uniforms, but we want to give Ukraine $1 billion.
Yeah, we've lost our bearings as a country in so many more ways than one. The Ukraine thing is just one example, right? There's so many more examples where this weird ideology of the world is being tossed onto us, where we're wasting money into, like, man, I've got nothing against First Nation peoples, but there's something like 44 billion that goes towards them each year. I work the numbers out for how many First Nation members we have in Australia to how much money they get. It's like 50 grand per person.
Yeah. Stop welcoming me to my own country. I was born here, right?
Yeah.
I've worked with a great amount of Indigenous people. Lived in remote towns in Queensland. I'm in a remote town in Queensland at the moment. They're everywhere. There's some that are just, stop welcoming me to my own country. It's our country. Let's be inclusive and let's go forward together. Because every time, like, who was that guy that did that welcome to country at the footy game? And he goes, before Cook, in 8, whatever it was before.
Yeah, that was a GWS game. Yeah.
That's how you divide the country. Straight away from there, like, I didn't like the welcome to country. I respected it. I got up and did my bit. But from there on in, when that bloke said that, done now. Like,
yeah,
you lost me.
Yeah, it's like there's more policies coming at the moment that are dividing us as Australians rather than uniting us.
Uniting us, exactly.
It's really disappointing to see, especially, I did a piece a couple of weeks ago about the Australia that I fought for back in 2012, and it's not the Australia that is right now. And it's sad because, the Australia right now is the Australia that pushes gender ideology onto kids. It's the Australia that, is telling young men that they're toxic in their masculinity. It's the same Australia that is dividing people over the welcome to country. It's the same Australia that is printing our dollar to oblivion and giving us inflation that no one wants. And it's the same Australia that is painting rainbow crossings, across across streets where 99% of people don't care about it, and even the LGB community, they don't even want it. So many people commented on my post, be like, "Yeah, this shit's gone too far. Like, I'm gay, and I'm a proud gay person, and I'm honestly, this is going too far."
Like, if you want to marry a dude, marry a dude. Like, good on you. You want to, like, I want to be left alone. Leave me alone. I don't care what you do, as long as you're not hurting anyone. Couldn't care less. Like, why are we, like, highlighting what they do? Yeah, I understand it's tough for them and all that. Like, I wouldn't know all that, but surely in this day and age, like, if your mate's gay, like, it doesn't change who he is as a bloke or who she is as a female. Like, I read something the other day that it said something like, if the Anzacs could see this country today, do you think they would have gone and fought or did what they did where this country is today? And I'd say no. Like, because we've gone from storming the beaches of Gallipoli to, like, safe spaces for words, like letting males in female sport. Like,
mate, I deployed 13 years ago, and I don't know if I would still fight for this country.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? I mean,
yeah, if it was 100%, like, I agree. Like, I've been asked a couple of times about, like, my Afghan trips, for instance. They're like, "Oh, why did you go?" I'm like, I don't know. I don't know the political reason. I went because my mates went, right? And, like, there's an evil in the world that you do not want in this country, and it's better to fight that evil on their land than bring it here, because if 90% of the public knew what happened in that country, or what some of, our mates have done, like, they would be floored. Like, the public's not ready to hear what that country's like and how shit it is and evil it is. But the second time I went because my mates went, and I'd never forgive myself if I just decided to stay at home and be lazy and something happened to my mates. So that's why, political-wise, like I've said it, like I miss my daughter growing up for some other suit's war. A man in a suit decided to go to war over whatever it was, religion, oil, whatever. And they, and then they try and burn us for it. Like,
yeah, it's really unfortunate. And you made a great point before about, like if a lot of people knew what actually happened in Afghanistan, they would be petrified, and they're not even ready for that, to understand that way of life. Like, man, I'm talking, we had a 13-year-old suicide bomber, but even just the way like kids there are treated and as sexual objects under the age of 10, 6, they're sold off into marriages. Little boys it's just tough, man.
They dress the boys up, and they actually do like parades and auctions where they auction boys off and all that kind of stuff. And it's generational, they only do what's been done to them. But yeah, the 90% of the public, if they knew how, like Man Love Thursday, what goes on there, it would be out of control. But, it's a suits war, and I don't think we'll ever know the real reasons we went, but...
I don't even really ask those questions anymore, to be honest.
I've sat and looked back, like, as I said to you just then, that, I missed my daughter growing up because I chased the trips, chased, the gongs, the money, that highlight, like, for what? Like, wherever we got now, the suits just gave Afghanistan back. The Taliban rolled into Kabul without firing a single shot, but we spent 20 years there. And lost some good men, some of the best men of our generation, so a suit could give it back. Like,
yeah, that was a diabolical mistake, wasn't it?
Oh, mate. I don't think if you sat down, you could pay to fuck up that withdrawal. I don't think you could pay. Like, you couldn't do it if you bought it. Like, that's how good it was. Like, and I listened to a lot of other podcasts. There's been a Sean Ryan show. He's had guys on there that went and did stuff at the withdrawal. And I'm just like, how did we ever let it get to that?
Yeah, there was a guy there that was a part of the he wasn't a part of the 13 that got killed by that suicide bomber, but he was one of the guys who got injured. And I think it was CNN or MSNBC, someone like that, got him in for an interview. And they didn't end up airing the hour-and-a-half interview. They only did 15 minutes of it because it made the administration, or the previous administration and Democratic Party, look so bad. So they didn't even air it in the States. Yeah. So then Sean Ryan hit him up over Instagram, got him in, flew him in. They did a 3-hour podcast. They dropped it, and America listened to it, and they were just like, what the fuck did we do? How did we screw up so badly? And why did CNN and a couple of these other big media outlets not tell this story the way he told it? Why didn't they tell the truth? Why? Because it made the current Biden-Harris administration look so bad, so they didn't want to do it.
Is that the guy that lost his arm and Biden went to shake his hand, but it was the wrong hand? Yeah. Like he's missing his right hand or something, and he had him at the White House, and Biden went to shake his hand, and he had no arm. He's just like, oh. And Biden just turned and walked away. That's how pathetic it was.
Mate, he was a corpse walking, that dude. He just, not the guy with the one arm, but Biden. He was shaking hands with Ghost. He was, fuck knows what he was doing.
And how, what do you call that? Dereliction of duty or something like that, where they knew that he was on the decline. They knew, and they propped him up. Like, I've listened to another podcast with, there was some insiders have come out, and she's been on the Sean Ryan show as well. And she said that it's Biden's wife. She pretty much ran the White House, and they even let they found a bag of cocaine in the White House one time, and everyone just goes and Hunter Biden was there, and he's a mad, just loves the crack and hookers, and they said, "Oh, is this your cocaine?" He's like, "No, I'm clean." and apparently he was just wired. And like he sat in on defence briefings and everything. Excuse me. And I reckon he was just off his tree all the time.
Yeah, on the last, someone said, and this is only just me reading stuff on, Twitter and social media, so, take that with a grain of salt. But they reckon for the last 2 months, Biden was so out of it that Jill and Hunter were running the country.
Oh, stop it. Really?
Yeah.
What do you reckon they gave him to prop him up for?
He would have had...
debate,
what do you
reckon they would have got him on?
Yeah, I was talking to a whole bunch of mates about this. No guys that have, any real pharmaceutical training and that, but it just would have been a whole bunch of massive, vitamin injections and potentially get hit with a tiny bit of adrenaline.
Did you see when he put on the Trump MAGA hat?
Yeah.
See that at the rally? He puts it on, and then he carried it onto the plane. And I reckon, out of the 4 years of that administration, I reckon the happiest I saw Biden was when he did the handover with Trump, and Trump's sitting in the Oval Office, and they're sitting next to each other. He was just like, Biden's like, I reckon Biden voted for Trump. He was that happy that day.
Mate, there was also there's also some really interesting bits of video you can see online of Jill Biden absolutely hating Kamala Harris. So Kamala Harris must have done the sneaky there because she obviously somehow ousted Joe Biden and said, he's not the guy, I'm the person, and then stuck her hand up and went forward with it. So I reckon Joe Biden in the end didn't even want Kamala Harris to get it because she actually shafted him to get into that position in the first place.
I heard that too.
All right, are you ready to run into this?
Yeah, mate. Yep.
All right. Simon Jones, mate, welcome to Two Worlds Collide podcast. How you going?
Good, mate. Thanks for having me.
No, you're welcome. Mate, I've tried to get you onto this podcast a couple times and, mate, I'm glad we finally made it work. Right before Anzac Day as well. It's obviously a really important day for both you and I, but more importantly to get stories like yourself out there, right before Anzac Day. So all the listeners out there, it's just another really good insight into the sacrifice that some people have to make for, what was your military career, for like a decade?
Yeah, it was about 13 years or I think it was 12, 13 years, a fair chunk of my life. Yeah,
so a massive chunk of your life, heaps of sacrifice there. You said that with the 5 trips, so obviously that takes the mental toll as well. So look, I want to unpack that and get into that later on in the episode, but I'd love to start with why military guys wanted to join the military, because it's not something your average brawler on the street wants to do. So mate, why did you want to join the military?
I put it down to my older brother. So my older brother had already joined. So my older brother Aaron, he's a 3CR, so he's a sapper. He always led the way, so I think it was a natural thing for him. But he joined. Don't quote me on this. I think it might have been 97 or 98. So I was younger, and then he got rapidly deployed to Interfet in 99. So Aaron was in the military, and I can just remember him coming back on Christmas breaks and, and his leave and all that, and his mates all coming back, because we grew up on the Gold Coast, so all his mates were down there, and I just remember looking at, the brotherhood, their mateship, how tight they were, and I could always remember just thinking to myself, that's what I want. Like, I was a bit lost on the Gold Coast. I had a good group of friends, but I wasn't good at school, I'm not very book smart, so I was just like, what do I do here? And then I just looked at what my brother was doing. I think he set the example, and he still does today, really, with everything that I do. But I just followed in his footsteps. And even my little brother joined as well. Like, my little brother and I were in Afghan together in 2012. So I think it was really my older brother set the standard for us. And then when it was in Timor, everything from there just evolved around the military. How everything went from there, and then, flowed on to 9/11 and all that, and it was sort of a no-brainer.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So you had 2 brothers growing up?
Yeah, so I got older sister, Marnie, and then older brother Aaron and my younger brother Matt.
Was there a fair bit of competition between the 3 brothers?
Oh, it still is today. My little brother's a freak. He does Ironmans just for shits and giggles. He's a full-time electrician, got 2 kids, missus, he's up at 3:30, 4 in the morning, swimming, bike riding, running. And then my older brother's one of those, everything he touches he's good at. He's a really good rugby player, really good AFL player, phenomenal sapper. And then, even now, like, speak to him, he's like, 20 Ks into a run. Yeah, I'll chat to you later. And you call him, he's just talking to you like we're talking now, and he's sitting at, he runs marathons at, just over a 4-minute pace type thing, and at the end, I'm like, I really hope that hurts you. And he's just like, he's like, probably could have pushed harder. I'm like,
yeah, mate, those people with, and like, I'm sure there's a fair bit of natural ability there, but they would have to work hard for it as well.
Oh yeah, like, and he's a plumber by trade as well. And growing up, we grew up in Burleigh, so we were always nippers, surf club, all that. We're North Burleigh boys. And I can just remember growing up, because Aaron's 4 years older than me and Maddie's 2 years younger, so we're all around, that same age group. And I just remember swim training, running, board paddling. We're always at each other, and it's still to this very day now. Like my brothers sort of set the standard for where I want to be, and how, if I could be like half the man, half the father, half the husband those guys are, I'd be doing pretty good in my life. And just the way they run their businesses, how they approach just problems in life as well. Just very competitive.
Yeah, okay, so your older brother went in, then you went in. What year did you join?
So I joined 28th of May 2002. So I was still 17 when I joined. So, yep.
Early.
Yeah, so, end of May, 28th of May 2002 I joined, yep.
What was it like going to basic training as a 17-year-old?
Yeah, it was pretty hectic, because I grew up on the Gold Coast, went to a private school, so everything that we got, mum and dad worked phenomenally hard for. They gave us everything we needed, so I was pretty sheltered. I'd never been on a plane, so signed up the day that we enlisted, straight out to Brizzy Airport, and like the first time I'd been on a plane is down to Sydney and then out to Kapuka. And I remember, like, there's the guy that gets on the bus, like, he shadows you and he's in his army uniform. He's like, "Oh, guys, come over here." And you're like, real nice fella, and then gets to the gate to Kapuka and he's just face ripping you. And I'm like, I immediately regret this decision. I remember that. And just it being so fucking cold down there, like Wagga in the winter. Well, Wagga Wagga's so good, so shit they named it twice type thing, but then to go through there in the winter, like, it's fucking out of control. Look, the Gold Coast, it gets cold when it gets below 15 degrees. Wagga's 0.
Mate, that's I grew up in Adelaide, so the winter didn't really hit me too much in Wagga. Our winters get really cold down here. Well, we get a great summer as well, but yeah, so the winter didn't really hit me too much. But what about that shock of capture? Did you sort of get shocked in the first couple of weeks where you sort of double thinking yourself, maybe I shouldn't be here?
Yeah, heaps of times. Yeah, heaps. And I think I did that across a lot of my military career. Even I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was with Joe Rogan, and they were talking about the imposter syndrome. And I still sometimes think I've got it now as well. Like I'm very lucky to be in.
I've still got it.
Yeah, and that was, like that shock of capture across that early parts of my career in the military. Yeah, 100%. First couple of weeks, when they're tossing your bed out the window, looking back now, nothing you ever did was going to be good enough, but that was just so foreign to me. Like, if I didn't make my bed, mum and dad weren't tossing it out the window and making you go and get it. You weren't standing there in the hallway in your pajamas at 6 a.m. with a sheet over your shoulder type thing. But, that first couple of weeks, I can just remember just going, what the fuck have I got myself into? And that flowed on to, we'll get into it later, but my first Afghan trip. I thought I was killing it coming out of Timor. Section command had done a couple of things. But then that first week in Afghan, I was like, wow. Like, someone asked me how to explain it. I was like, it's like you're playing reserve grade park footy on Friday afternoon, and then Mal Meninga comes and grabs you and says you're starting State of Origin Wednesday night. That's how I explain it. That was the jump. You're putting number 7 on your back. and you're running out of Suncorp Stadium. That's the kind of jump it was. But going back to Kapuka, just that first couple of weeks, I was just like, no, I'm not sure about this.
Yeah, mate, I was pretty much the same. I was 18 when I first joined, and people yelling at me, and like I've had footy coaches and teachers and my dad yell at me before, but not like right in your face and intimidating and trying to stand over you. And they're big dudes, right? And they're so precise in their wording, and they're so precise in what they're trying to tell you. They're trying to break it down. They're trying to belittle you, and then all of a sudden it's like when you wake up, both sheets over the shoulders, get ready to go, and then you're standing out there staring at someone that you've never ever met before, and staring at a whole bunch of other people, and you're like, "Fuck, what are we doing here?"
And that whole sensory overload and information overload, it's all just so. I can see looking back now, like I did it to people on courses, the heavy weapons course, stuff that we did to people, and then on promotion courses, what was done later on down the track. You can see why they did it, but at that time, being 17, I had mum and dad yell at me, had my brothers yell at me, footy coaches and that as well, and been in a couple of punch-ons here and there and being yelled at, but that sustained, repeated, in your face.
And mate, you would have probably struggled as well, like me, being 17, 18. Like our bodies are still growing, and because mate, I used to sleep like fucking 12 hours a night back when I was 17, 18, and then we went into straight 8 hours of sleep. Or you're like in bed at 10, you're up at 6, so you probably go to bed by about 11, get to sleep, and then you wake up normally a bit earlier. So you've really got about 7 hours worth of sleep.
And
doing
food,
that for 3 months straight.
The food thing was the big one for me. Like, you just go to the fridge and eat whenever you wanted at home. Mum would do the shopping and get 4 loaves of bread for us boys type thing. But having, this is your breakfast, this is your lunch, this is your dinner. Like, I'll send you a photo after this of... I've got a photo of me at Kapuka holding like the little placard that's got, your Reggie number on it and your name. Mate, I don't even look like I've hit puberty. I would have been 63 kilos ringing wet when I got to Kapuka. I don't even think I could grow a beard. I didn't think I started shaving until I got to Kapuka. I'll send it to you after this. But it is crazy.
I'm looking forward to seeing it, mate. Because I was similar, right? I remember having a photo when we were at IETs, and I had a little patch of hair on my chest here, and now I've got hair like everywhere on my chest, and it's like, man, I fucking barely hit puberty when I was in the army.
Yeah, that's I totally agree. I look back now, and like I'll send you the photo, and it'll floor you, mate. I've actually got hair. I couldn't grow a beard, and I probably had 3 tufts of hair, 3 like strands of hair in the middle of my chest, and mate, but I was built like the side of a tissue, right? Like, I'm not big now or anything, but I look then and I go, how did you let this kid into the military and then play with weapons? It's crazy.
Yeah, for anyone watching on the YouTube channel, I'll have that photo that you're talking about up while you're talking about it. So if you're listening on Spotify or Apple or something like that, you're going to miss out. But head over to the YouTube if you want to see that that photo. But mate, from there, you obviously you did your IET training and stuff like that, and then you went to Townsville, Turara. What was that like going up there?
Well, when I got told that we were going to the 2nd Battalion, I had to look in the Refidex of where Townsville was. You didn't have phones then. Going through like Tamworth, Townsville. I was like, oh fuck, there's actually something past Rockhampton. Never been on a plane before. Hardly travelled like anywhere without mum and dad type thing. And I remember when the plane landed, still at Townsville, they didn't bring the air bridge out to the plane. Like you went down the stairs and walked across the tarmac. And I remember getting to the door and the heat hitting me. Like I just never, it's like someone left the oven door open. I've never felt heat like that in my life. And I remember standing there and I looked at the hostie and I just went, what have I got myself into? And then it was on the bus out there, and the RP sergeant, he was just there, and just India. Because I thought, you've done your Kapuka, you've done your IETs, and you get to the battalion and they'll be relaxed. But it was just at you again. And until you earn your stripes, you had to, what it's like getting to the battalion. You had to earn your stripes. And yeah, just remember doing runs in the morning. Like for the first 2 weeks, you kept with like the RPs, and they do all your inductions and onboarding, all that kind of stuff. And I remember just doing runs in the like waking up and just being and sweating. Get out of the shower, sweating, like everything. Eat your dinner, sweat, and just.
I remember, mate. I remember the exact same thing because I went from Adelaide to Wagga Wagga to Sydney in 3RAR. Spent a couple of years there, and then when 3RAR moved to Townsville, I went up there and I had like the exact same thing, but probably a little bit worse because I had to adjust to Sydney heat. Because Sydney heat is more humid than Adelaide, and then when you go from Sydney to Townsville, I couldn't breathe. I couldn't fucking breathe. Oh,
it's crazy, isn't it? I remember getting up there and then settling into the company. You got sent to Charlie Company, and I remember, you got split up, and we went to 9 Platoon, and first few days I got punched in the face by one of the older blokes because I went into the cage when I wasn't meant to. The lid sit out the front, and I remember at the time just going, "What the fuck, this fucking bloke?" And he's like one of my closest mates to this very day. Like it just at the time I had a drama with, but now I look back and I was like, no, you've got to earn your spot. It's a right to come into the cage, to be around the boys. And they were a pretty tight-knit group of guys. They just got back from Munte yet. So they'd come off Chrissy break and they'd come back to the battalion, and so they're a tight-knit group of guys, and we'd be the first fellas that come into the battalion in years, like a couple of years type thing. So of course they were just going to shun us, but once you earned your stripes and you got in, mate, I loved the battalion, loved it. Playing rugby, march around as a battalion with pipes and drums, playing Back in Black, punch-ons at the boozer. Getting hot dim sims thrown at you. Just wild times, like you leave home at 17, and next thing you know, you're at a boozer parade with 1,000 blokes, and it's $2 cans of rum. Like, whoa, strap yourself in. No one warns you about any of that.
Nah, they don't, mate. I used to specifically stay clear of the Shat at 3RAR. It was a pretty famous boozer within the RAR regiment, and mate, I stayed clear of it like all the time because when we had our Capion Day, which is day before Anzac Day, bro, you used to go. They used to go in there, and like some of the sergeants would be like, "All right, guys, bring your mouth guards." We're like, "What for?" Because we're punching on. I'm like, "No, I'm fucking not."
Yeah, they did something similar to our where they had like the mad minute or whatever it was, and if you had a drama with someone, they called you out. You're in the circle and you just punch the shit out of each other till you sorted your problems. Shake your hand and then walk off.
Yeah. It's a different world now, isn't it?
Yeah, mate. I remember seeing an interview with, I think it was with Grinspoon, and they said when they were early days Grinspoon, like in the early 90s, whatever it was, they said, they'd made it big and they were being interviewed, and they said, what's the wildest place you've ever played? And the lead singer Grinspoon turns around and he goes, when we were early days Grinspoon, we played at the Shat at the Army Boozer out at Holsworthy, and he called it the Shat, and he goes, those blokes are fucking crazy. He goes, I'll never go back. Never. And I was like, I know some guys that were probably there because it used in the early 90s, it used to be fucking crazy. And to 9 RAR's Boozer, it actually was rated in the top 5 night spots in Brizzy in the late 80s. Early 90s.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's how that place used to go off because anyone could come onto the bases back then. So you could, anyone could get a taxi and get dropped off at the Boozer and party. And the 8-9 RAR Boozer was rated in the top 5 night spots in Brizzy there for a bit.
Yeah, right.
It used to go off that much. Yeah.
Man, even the Shat with 3RAR, like, even when I was there in 09, 10, it was just like it probably lost a bit of its stigma, I would say, when we moved from Holsworthy to
it would have
Townsville, because it was fucking wild. It was that like I try to explain it to someone that was outside of the military. Like I got a lot of people that aren't in the military that listen to this podcast.
Yeah,
and I try and explain it to them, and one of the only bits of information I can give you to what it was like is like imagine a bikie bar and they just want to fight each other and they practically get free booze. But one person always wants to up the other person. So if someone does something crazy, then someone else will up that. And it just keeps going on for hours and hours. And there's no rank in there. There's no rules. So a sergeant can't come in and tell a private, hey, you can't do that, because there's no rank in the shat. And
the officers used to leave the 2-hour boozer. After the CO would address the boozer, once the CO finished speaking, the officers used to see him hightail it. Because I just, like, I remember one 2-hour boozer party, it was a dress-up night, and one of the boys from Mortars, he had to come dressed something as P, I think it was. So he come dressed as paper, and he literally got pieces of A4 pieces of paper and made like an outfit. But as soon as he walked into the boozer, someone set him on fire. Boom. He just walking around in his undies. And obviously we had a P&G platoon over, a company, and they put on this big feed, like the Hungies or whatever it is they do. And they had this live band there, and they were playing. So they had like the singers up the front playing the guitars and whatever, and there's the guy on the drums. And a good mate of mine, the big Macedonian wog, he got like it was like a lamb bone or something, and he's just chewing the meat like that. But the bits of gristle, when he couldn't get it, he'd break it off and he'd just throw it. And he was hitting the band, and they was like hitting the lead singer in the fucking face, and then food was falling on the drum kit. And halfway through the song, this band stops, and the lead singer goes, "One more bit of food hits me, we're leaving." And the Macedonian wog just grabbed the butt and just threw it, and went, boom, hit the drummer fair in the head. And they go, "That's it, we're leaving, we're good, fuck off." Just throwing beer bottles at him and fucking rum cans. We used to have like a raffle wheel, and it had a date, a price, and a time. So they'd spin the wheel and say it landed on 1970, and it had 7 minutes. So they'd Google the beer prices in 1970, and it'd say it was 15 minutes. All the grog was whatever the prices were in 1970 for that time. I remember one time, cans of rum were like $1. So you just give them $20, and it was that cheap. You'd throw full cans of rum at people. Like, it was $1. You just
I remember in there someone was saying that like the alcohol can't get taxed in there, so they can sell it for like $1 or
cheap.
$2 a can.
Yeah.
Which was the most dangerous part, because you go there with fucking $40 and you could get 20 cans, and it's like, man, a lot of people. I remember one time at the boozer. After this story, we'll get onto some of your trips, but mate, I was there for like 30 minutes. I'm like, I don't want to nestle in here. I'm going to head off. So I went back to my room on base. I woke up like 4 hours later, 12 o'clock at night, go onto my balcony because I heard some ruckuses. There are like 40 blokes outside my room, all in a big circle, and there's like a 2v2 boxing match going on.
Oh, mate. We had one bloke turn up in the Mankini one time, and we like crowd surfed him across like the whole boozer, and he got wedgied that hard it ruptured one of his testicles. We had to carry him over to fucking Laverack Barracks Hospital, and they're like civic nurses are on. They're like, "What happened?" He's like, his fucking nuts are just swollen up, and he's in a mankini, and he's like wedgie. I remember him like being wedgied like that, and I remember him screaming, just going, "My nuts!" We're like, "Shut up!" But it ruptured his testicle. Like.
Oh, wow.
I know one bloke he had a burn mark on his head because like they used to bring down the bar snacks, like the dim sims and the pastries and that. He was gobbing off, and someone threw like a dim sim at him, hit him and it burned him because it was still hot. He had like a burn mark on his forehead. So,
we're like
times.
We're like a pack of unregistered dogs in there.
Oh, mate.
Just like running around.
Some of the shit that used to go on. I remember like being in there 18, 19, and some of like party tricks, you would say, with certain appendages. I remember just being 18, 19, just going, what the fuck is going on? Like grown men, like I look down on them. I'm saying this like I'm high and mighty, but I've done some stupid things as well. But remember just being 18, just going, what the fuck is going on? Getting AGL attachments out of the armory to see whose thing could fit in the AGL.
All right.
Like
Let's stop it there.
Yeah, that's crazy. But, good times.
Mate, let's move on to your trip. So you did 5, 2 Timor, 1 Solomon, 2 Afghan. I guess maybe just walk me through in like a timeline of events of then. Any sort of significant events that happened over on these trips, and then I want you to leave the Afghan trips at the end, and then we'll talk about those.
So got to the battalion 02, straight to Charlie Company, and then we went to the online company group. So in early 2003, we were recalled and got reacted to the Solomon Islands. Whatever we went over there for, peacekeeping, peace enforcing, who knows. Just another coup that we had to go and sort out. Excuse me. And that was mainly supporting like the federal police. But for me, that was 19, first time overseas, on deployment. That was like everything you'd sort of worked for. And it was a bit of a, looking back compared to the other trips, it was like a letdown because you're hyped up. You're like, fuck yeah, we're going, we're deploying, it's on. The last time guys were reacted like this was Interfet in 99 and they got stuck into it. And you get over there and it was nothing really, just sweated even more, got prickly heat type thing, and just babysat the federal police. And we were over there for about 5 months, I think it was 4 or 5 months, and then straight back to Australia. Nothing really happened on that trip. It was more like the significance of the Solomon Islands, like Guadalcanal, and how that was such a key piece of terrain across the the Second World War. If the Americans lost and regained that airfield there at Guadalcanal countless amount of times, and if they lost that, the foothold then into the rest of they could have dominated Australia. We weren't too far away from speaking Japanese or German type thing, but nothing much happened on that one. But that was an eye opener of what deployments were like. 2003, rapidly deployed. That was an eye opener of like, shit, this is where we're coming into a real thing here. And then 2004, Charlie Company was sent to Hawaii. So we got the RIMPAC trip over there in Hawaii. So we spent a few months over there. No, it was a couple of months, or a month, I don't know, can't remember. But just played up merry hell over there. 19, fake ID. Getting paid good cash. We did best mates. Time of your life. 05, back just promotion courses, didn't do a lot. Promotion courses, heavy weapons course. And then 06, back to Charlie Company and reacted to Timor. Once again, went to work on a Wednesday and didn't go home for 6 months. All kicked off over there. I remember flying into Dili the night time and the place is on fire. I remember just looking out the window of the Herc. The place is on fire and we hit the ground and it was just, just chasing down the militia. I just remember it being relentless, just being hot and sweaty. And we had a company commander at the time. He was just ruthless. He said, if you're awake, you're patrolling. Remember, not eating properly, not showering, 6 or 7 weeks and just full on. And that, I remember I got promoted just before that and I was promoted to a Lance Corporal just before we deployed. So you knew something was going on, but you didn't know exactly what. But my section commander got pulled from the trip or he had to go do something. So I was freshly promoted to a Lance Corporal and then just before we went, got told you're also going to be the section commander. So talk about being thrown in the deep end, learning on the run. There's actually, lots of stuff going on. You're chasing down people. You're trying to get them to stop burning and just burning everything and killing everyone. That was a steep learning curve, that one. That was like, holy fuck, you're now leading Australian soldiers on operations. It's time to stop being, a dickhead and grow up here because you got people's lives in your hand. I found that trip was probably the hardest to adjust to out of all the trips I did, purely because I think so young and being thrust into that, and having that, especially when they talk about the strategic corporal, a lot of generals can't affect what goes on at certain levels of government, but a corporal on the ground can. You shoot the wrong person or you arrest the wrong person or you do the wrong thing. That's in the media and that can change countries' opinions of how you operate. So the pressure of that was just like looking back now, it was phenomenal, and I didn't deal with it the greatest. It took probably the last couple of months of the trip for me to really realise the magnitude of what I was doing and to sort of grow up and be a lot more mature about it. And I remember getting back to Australia and having some time off, and then when we got back to work at the end of 06, we were told that you're going back again in 07. So yeah, that was the first trip that I'd done where we would have the proper lead up. You know, you do your language training, you had time together as a section, as a platoon, as a company, and you actually got your proper mission briefs, all that kind of stuff. It wasn't getting briefed on the herc as you're going in. It's, this is what we're going to do. This is the mission. And got back there again in October of 07, and full corporal, had my own section, did the lead up training with, and that's where I those two first trips really matured me as a corporal, as a human, really. You know, probably some of my friends wouldn't agree with that, but I remember getting, and just the way that how I changed giving orders, how, you know, I was very fortunate to have some very strong section commanders, 2 ICs before that. But yeah, that trip, you know, it was a bit of a stoush at the iPod there at the airport, and I can remember just feeling like in control of what went on. Like we were going to drop a vehicle off at the heliport, and as we come around the big roundabout, there was like an IDP camp, like internally displaced persons, and there's hundreds, like thousands of people there, and the UN didn't give them their rice and their fucking tents before the wet season came in. And remember, as we come around the corner, I remember looking up, and this rock comes straight through the windscreen and hit the driver in the face. So we just had a transport driver, and he's like, bleeding. We're like, okay, mate, like, you keep saying it's not going to change the fact that you're bleeding. And you could hear all the darts, because they make like homemade guns. So they're like, you know, when you see people go spearfishing, you know, see that's what it was like. So they pull the rubbers back and they fire and you can hear the darts hitting the side of the car, and sort of got out and deployed the section around. And then there was a certain line that you couldn't cross, because once you crossed into the camp, you know, that was all under the UN control, like the humanitarian aid type thing. And I remember I left part of my section up to cover my withdrawal, and like me and my SIG and the number 1 rifleman, I think it was, and I left. So we were moving back, and I heard this round go off, and I was just like, what the fuck was that? And he probably won't mind me saying his name, Luke. He just goes, yeah, Jonesy, I shot someone. I was like, what the fuck? And, you know, this was meant to be, 07 was meant to be a time you go to Timor, and it was like gym, eat, sleep, repeat, do some patrols. You know, the country's well under control now. It's got a new government, they're, you know, elected government and all that. And then Esky just cracks this bloke, and then it just erupted. They just went to town. They're throwing fucking rocks at us. They had like crew serve slingshots at us and stuff like that. And I just remember just going, like, what did you do, Luke? He goes, yeah, well, he's going to fire a dart at you, so I just plugged in. I was like, fuck. And he was up like that, so it went in underneath here, you know, coming out the other side. And, yeah, the place just erupted. They just went to town on everyone. We had to call in like the QRF to come and get us back out of there. And yeah, it took like a week to settle down the IDP camp. You know, they set fire to their own tents, the idiots. But so that 07 into 08, and I'd come back and I'd had enough by that stage. So I actually told the battalion that I wanted to get out. Because I was married at the time, had a young daughter at home, and being away so much, my partner at the time, my wife then, she goes, I'm moving back to the Gold Coast, and I want to be up there. So I said, I want to get out. And then as I was getting on the plane to come home, the RSM grabbed me and said, hey, listen, they're re-raising 8-9 RAR in Brizzy. They're going to do some IET courses. Do you want to go? Would you stay in and go to Brizzy? I was like, yeah, fuck it, why not? So I stayed in. I had most of 08 off because I had a heap of leave, and then marched into 8-9, the end of 08. So into 09, just did some IET courses. Then I went on promotion course. I was on Trouble for Sergeant. That's how. And that'll lead into Afghan. But first time, 2010. That's a bit of a story behind all that, how all that happened. But yeah, so I did 3 trips my Afghan ones. So very lucky, very fortunate to be around some great soldiers. You know, when soldiering was soldiering, you know, you'd go to Tully, you'd spend months up at high range or shell water, but, you know, stepped through the promotion course stuff and got into heavy weapons. And, you know, that the 05 platoon in heavy weapons, the platoon sergeant, 3 RAR, you know, old school, you know, he would have been the one at the shat that would have been punching on type stuff. But old school heavy weapons guy, you know, Mag 58s, the 50 cals are starting to come in, AGLs, all that kind of stuff. I just loved it. Absolutely just loved that environment and being around those guys, because that, like, partied hard, but trained hard too. And then that's how it got railroaded into heavy weapons. But then M09, that's life changed after that, mate. It was a quick change.
Yeah, okay. So then 09, you had a bit of some things happened. Did you go back up to 2 then?
No. So I'd marched into 8-9. So I was in 8-9 area, and I was on sub 1 for sergeant. And at that time, so 2010, so 6 RAR had been penciled in to go do, I think they called it MTF then. They were going to do MTF 1, so the mentoring task force. So 8-9 was still in this, like, a very junior small battalion. Like, I think the CO at the time is now the Chief of Army, Colonel Simon Stewart, is one of the greatest leaders I've ever been around in. I actually feel a bit sorry that he's got the army in this state, like, because he's a phenomenal leader. He should be CDF, but he won't get that chance because of what old Bong Eyes Campbell's done to the ADF. But, so I was a senior corporal on promotion courses, and then there was senior sergeants who'd been taken down to 6 RAR to fill their spots in the omelette teams and the MTF and all that. And 6 RAR at the time had phenomenal section commanders, so I wasn't getting a call up, which was, you know, fine. It's just the way that it is. So I went and did promotion courses. So I was on sub 1 for sergeant, and I got called into the course instructor's office, and he said, "You need to get back to 8-9. Your CO and RSM want to see you." And I've been known to get in a little bit of trouble here and there, a little bit of strife. I enjoy beer and can run my mouth a bit, so, you know, I've been in trouble before. So I thought the whole
really?
Yeah, mate. Oh, fuck. Yeah. So the whole drive back from Canungra to Brizzy, I was going like 50 cent, 5 cent, you know, my ass is grabbing the seat, like trying to think about what I'd done. And I got called into Colonel Stewart's office, and he said, "Listen, we've just been given a warning order to provide support to the Special Operations Task Group, and we're going to send 12 blokes, and we need a sergeant to take them over." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, cool. Like, you know, do you want me to help? You know, do some bushy training, like, because I, you know, crew commander qualified, and, you know, heavy weapons and all that kind of stuff." So I just thought, oh, you know, they need someone to train up. I said, "Okay, like, I'll help out where I can. Like, I'm on course. I'm pretty keen to get this done." And the RSM's like, "Oi." I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "It's you dickhead. We're going to promote you, and you're going to go out." I was like, "Oh shit. Okay, right." So they pretty much promoted me in the next couple of days, and then got the group, and then we were meant to go to the MRE down in Adelaide there, but unfortunately, you know, Mason Edwards got killed on that MRE, and the MRE got stopped. So we just stayed in the battalion, and you know, just got surrounded with some really good senior diggers and a couple of junior corporals and that, but just phenomenal guys. That I was pretty lucky. We got to sort of handpick the best across the battalion. And so it was just us, and we just trained. It was all just about getting fit, shooting. And then I think it was end of 09, might have been beginning of 2010. I think it was the whole Commando company got sent up to Wide Bay, and we did a whole lot of lead-up training with them. And then on the Chrissy break, and I think we deployed into Afghan. It might have been, I think it was around April, I think. It was still a bit cold over there, but, you know, coming into the fighting season. And that's where, you know, got flown down to Commando a couple of times and met up with the CO of the task group, and the CEO of FE Alpha, which is the SASR. So it didn't have too much to do with them on the first trip, but it was mainly to Commando, and that's where, a lot of... So by this stage, I'd been in the Army for about 10 years, done a few trips. So a lot of the guys that were in the Special Forces units come from the battalion. So you knew a lot of guys down there, and that's, ran in Tim Applin, Cam Haynes, and a lot of the guys that were one of my closest mates to this day. Like, I sat next to him on the bus going to Kapuka. He was into Commando, had been there for a number of years, but he was in another company. So when you get to the front gate, he signed you in. So I knew a lot of guys down there, and then so it sort of felt comfortable. Still a pretty intimidating world to walk into, talk about alpha males, and, you're saying before about the boozer, everyone's trying to one-up each other. Like, if I said I could do 21 fingered push-ups, the bloke would just go, I can do 21.
Yeah.
And then the next bloke would go, I can do 30. It's like, how big is your dick competition type thing.
A lot of people don't realise as well, a lot of people don't realise as well, with the Special Forces community, guys that go in and get berated, 2 Commando and SAS guys, like there is only 300 or 400 of them, berated or like qualified guys each year.
Yeah.
They are, and if you put it into like AFL terms, there's like maybe 500 or 600, maybe not that, maybe 300 or 400 players that play in the AFL every single week. So there are less Special Forces beret guys that are in the Special Forces than there are AFL players.
Yeah, when you put it like that, that's crazy. And like I've said this before, and I'll say it again, I'll say it till the day that I go out, I got to witness the greatest men of our generation go about their work. And to see these men operate, like, I got a front row seat to history. Like, give me the popcorn. Popcorn and a beer. I got to watch these guys operate, and it's even more of a privilege and an honour that, like, I was mates with quite a number of them before we went over there. But the step up, as I said to you before, the step up from... So when I finished my second tour of Timor, I thought my shit didn't stink. I was like, yeah, section commander. Little couple of little scraps here and there. I've done 3 trips now, Hawaii trip. I've done this heavy weapons, all that. I thought my shit didn't stink. And then that first week in Afghan, the first job, first morning, one of the vehicles is IED'd, and then we get rocketed that afternoon. I remember sitting there at the bottom of the bushy on the step, and it's all hell's erupting around it. And I remember sitting there looking at myself going, what the fuck have you got yourself into? That's probably one of the first real things of that imposter syndrome, where I was saying to you before, where I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? Why am I here? Like, you are so far out of your league, it's not funny. And I was like, I can remember thinking to myself, I immediately regret this decision. Like, it's erupting. There's stuff going on everywhere. There's even people like firing pen flares. I'm like, why are you firing the pen flare? And they're like, I don't know, might never get to do it again. Yeah. The target indication was 700 metres away, and there's a bloke standing there with his 9mm, just cracking rounds out. I said, what are you doing that for? Don't know if I'll get to fire it again. I was like, okay, let's go. Like, here's the Mag 58, here's this. You see people run off with 84s, and like, it was just, and I remember sitting there just going, wow. Like, and I said, like, the way I explained it is, it's like I was playing under 9 Burleigh Bears, and then Mal Meninga rings and goes, you're starting State of Origin Wednesday night. That's the jump that these guys had. Like, even everything from their mission planning to their orders prep to the way they deliver their orders, to the way they do their equipment check before you go. Like, I was just maybe sitting there just going, wow, like, you have been playing reserve grade your whole life. That's what it was like. And I remember sitting there just going, and then it took like a couple of weeks to get into it, and I was like, now all I want to do is I just want to play A grade. I want to provide the best, because you're an asset to it. Like, you're providing the protected mobility and like the heavy weapons are there. I remember just thinking to myself, I want to be the best version. I want to provide the best like asset. I want to be the best asset to them, or my platoon. And yeah, just from there, and then, very fortunate, had some very good mates over there at the time, surrounded by some good guys who made me look good. Yeah, but it wasn't until the last couple of months of that trip where, all hell broke loose, really.
Yeah, okay. So what do you mean by all hell broke loose with the couple last months of the trip?
Like, so coming into that, So 6 RAR suffered a whole heap of losses, you know, which was hard because you knew those guys as well. So there's guys down there that, abusing that. I instructed him on his basic heavy weapons course. He was in the section that I ran. So you knew, wouldn't say it's best mates with them all, but, you're in the battalion across the road from each other. You played rugby against each other. You saw each other at the boozer. You did courses together. Like, got charged with a few of them. At the end of the heavy weapons course, we got pissed and trashed the room, an IET's room, threw foot powder and pizza all around his room. And me and like Dougie Walters and a couple other boys there, we all got charged. I lost rank over it. You lived it once a digger, always a digger. They'd suffered quite a heap of losses. And then, comes into the helicopter crash there in 2010 where, we lost, 3 great guys there. And then, there was the load marshal as well. So, that's, you're having the first part of the trip, you're on a high, you're deployed on combat operations with one of the most elite units in the world with your best mates, going about your work. And then, you have the stark realization of what loss really is like across that. I'll never forget it. It was fucking hard. That's selfish of me to say. There's family, what it's like, mate. Families lost loved ones, and it was, it's selfish for me to say it was hard, but I lost a mate, but, they lost husbands and fathers type thing. So, it definitely brought a reality check into things, I think it was one of the first times I sort of sat back and went, I've got a daughter at home and what I do here is directly going to affect the rest of her life, just take stupid risks, stuff like that. But yeah, that was
Yeah, do you think it was, sort of like a light bulb moment for you because you had done 3 trips and, you sort of got away with a little bit happening, but not anything real heavy. And then you got to a point where you had some massive stuff happen. You lost some mates. Was it like, oh shit, now I'm in it?
Yeah, 100%. This is fucking real. As I said, I come out of Timor, cocky, arrogant, thought my shit didn't stink. But as you said, what I thought was heavy was nothing compared to what was to come. Right. And then, there was a realization of, holy shit, I just lost. I remember that morning when the helicopter crashed and that, and I remember walking across the road and I saw one of the guys coming out of the Sock Sea and he looked at me and I looked at him. I said, who is it? And he goes, mate, you probably want to sit down. And I remember, that's when it hit. That's when, you realise that shit's real here. This is, stop. It's not a game. It's not a how big is your dick competition. This is people's lives here. And then it all just, the day got worse from there.
Because you were quite close with Tim, weren't you?
Yeah, very close. So I met Tim when I got up into the battalion. So 02, straight into the rugby mafia. And Tim was a life-size character. He was heavily in the rugby team. And one of the first sort of encounters I had with him, we were playing, I think I was playing in the seconds team and he was playing in the second row and one of the jumpers in the line out was missing. He goes, oh, can you jump? And I said, oh, I jumped. I'm the shortest bloke. And I go, yeah, they'll never think that we'll lift you. He goes, I just want you to step back and I'll lift you up like in a line out, like in rugby. I was like, yeah, righto. And I went back and he lifted me up and then he just dropped me. And I was to turn around, he just fucking whacked me. And he goes, if you ever turn up to rugby training with no undies on, he goes, I'll fucking flog you. Because when he lifted me up, he's obviously wedging me. My nuts had just come out the side and they're right in his face. And he just goes, if you don't have undies on next training session, I'm going to flog you. And then from there, just, went and mutual friends, Freddie Kruger, and, we went on Bucks party. I remember going on a Bucks party with him to, Airlie Beach, and I remember walking into Magnum's, which is at the top of Airlie, and I can see this, I look up, and Tim's climbed up onto the pool table, and he's got the ceiling fan, and he bent the blades around on the ceiling fan, and he's hanging onto it. And as the fan's going around, he's like, ah! And you guys are trying, like, one of the boys ripped the toilet off the floor, and there's water, ankle deep in water playing pool. And, he was a life-size character, and then, he was the oldest person to attempted and complete selection. So Tim was, he was also the, he's a platoon sergeant up there at support company. He used to wear like the apron. He had to carry his axe around. So when he was in formal dress, a pioneer platoon sergeant, he was the pioneer platoon sergeant when Mark Wales was the LT. So Wales, he went on to SAS, and he's written a book, and he's been on Survivor and all that. So they were the command team there for pioneers. And so Tim was just a massive figure in the battalion and phenomenal soldier. He had this big beard. He'd like pioneer platoon sergeant could grow a beard. He's the only one in the RAR that's allowed to grow a beard. And he'd wear like a welder's apron, and he'd have his medals across it, and he'd carry an axe, a big polished axe. There's a phenomenal photo of Tim with his big beard and his polished axe, and he used to sort of, when the battalion would march around, would be led by pipes and drums playing Back in Black, and then Tim would just swagger because he was so big, because he didn't have to swing his arm because he had his axe. And I remember just looking over, and like, we always, very close mates. And then he was actually, I remember when I first checked into the company that we were deploying with down at SOCOM there, and when I opened up the door to walk into one of the team rooms, he was there. He was the first one. The first guys I saw, and he's like, "Oh, Cam's here, this bloke's here," and I sort of caught up with all the old 2RR blokes, and he would always come and check in on us, making sure that we got what we needed. Come and give us heads up about jobs, and then if we were having any trouble with anyone, Tim would go and put him in a line. But then as soon as a lot of the company saw that Tim knew who we were, we got, they realised that we weren't just squeeze a sponge in the trip, and then from there, that's how I met Mr. Palmer as well. So through Tim, I remember having a few beers on the couch watching the Reds play.
Yeah, mate, he was always a Reds fan. He interesting point to note, mate. Yeah, so who we're talking about here is my cousin Scott Palmer, and right before he went to join the military, he actually got an invitation to the Queensland Reds to go join them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, mate, my uncle still has the invitation right up from the Queensland Reds. They ended up framing it. And,
oh, really?
Yeah, so Scott framed it and he gave it to his dad for a present, and his dad still got it in his home up in Darwin.
Yeah, nice.
Which is really cool, mate. He obviously loved the Reds and stuff like that.
Yeah. I remember being introduced to Scott through Tim, and I remember there was the rec room, so you go and sit on the couches, and it had a big TV up on the wall, and they'd replay the footy and that. And I remember going over there a few times, and Scott would just be sitting in there, sometimes by himself, sometimes with other guys, and just have the footy on. Sometimes it might be no sound on, just be sitting there, just watching the game, just zoning out. But then I remember the last time that I saw Scott and Tim alive was we were in the rec room, we were watching the Reds play, and we were all having a sneaky beer. Like you'd have the beer and you put it down in between there. Not Tim though. Tim would just drink it. Tim used to have a saying like, "What are we doing tonight, Tim?" And he'd be like, "We'll get a carton, we'll drink it, and we'll have a think." I go, "Then what?" And he goes, "Oh, we'll get another carton, and we'll just think some more about it." And I'm like, "Tim, you're 3 cartons deep." He goes, "Oh yeah, we need time to think." So it's one of the last times I saw them alive or spoke to them. Watch the Reds. It's moments like that. Like, how do you like, in the peak of your life, on deployment, representing your country, you got the best mates in the world, having a cold beer, watching the rugby, and then a couple of days later, it's all absolutely upside down. Scott passed away pretty quick, well, instantly, and then Tim wasn't too far behind, and then Ben Chuck, he died later on as well. So I didn't know Chucky all that well, I only just got to meet him from the trip, but always nice to us. Worked very closely with a couple of guys in my team, route selection and they were snipers and all that, and they had the mothership, and just a phenomenally nice guy. Every time we're up the range, giving us tips how to do things, how to pack gear, all that. But it was, knowing Tim personally and, knowing his wife and had the kids at home. And I remember sitting there, and after I got tired, I remember sitting on there's like a a ledge before it stepped onto the road. And I remember sitting there just thinking, they're about to get the worst phone call of their fucking life. Like, yeah, the life as they knew it was about to end. Or if they hadn't already been told, all the comms had been shut down by then. And I remember just sitting there because the couple of guys that I was with, like Luke Askew and a couple of other boys, we'd come down from 2 together, so he knew Tim as well. If anything, probably knew Tim longer than I did. And I remember just sitting there, just like crying, being upset. But then you've also got to take, looking around, there's other young guys that I had in the platoon as well, their first trip, and they're looking over, and I remember sitting there going, you can't be sitting out here crying. Like, go to the toilet, go and have a shower, do something, go to the gym, do something, just get away from them, because they don't need to see you upset. Because there was a couple of boys, 19, 20. I was only 29 myself, type thing, I was still immature, But I remember sitting there just thinking, you can't be out here being visibly upset. Go in your room, sit on your bed and pull the blinds across or whatever you need to do. And I remember sitting there and the CSM of the company, he'd come in, and I remember him saying, Chucky didn't make it to the hospital. He passed away in the helicopter. He goes, can you come and help me talk to Chucky's best mate, like Dave Pollard? So I remember looking at him going, mate, I'm struggling to deal with this myself, and you want me to go down and tell a guy I know from Tuara as well, that one of his best mates hasn't made it? Because when he got put on the helicopter, everything was looking good, but obviously shit changes pretty quickly, and he passed away. So a lot of the guys on the ground, because they were transiting back as well, no one knew that had happened. And I remember just sitting there just going, fuck, like, time to man up. I remember going down to the room, and the CSM walked in first, and I was sort of behind him, and he could sort of, Dave sitting there, and as soon as he looked up, he just knew. Yeah. And I lost it as well. I got asked to go down and like talk, but I couldn't talk. I was just like a blubbering mess. And I actually can't even remember the words that were said. It was more just sort of, there was lots of nodding and just like, nah, can't believe it type thing. And I was like, what good am I? Like, I'm a blubbering mess myself. Like, I can't. Yeah, like, it might be selfish to hear that or to say that, but yeah, I can remember just sitting there and then going back, and as I was walking back to the rooms, I saw Luke, and I said, I can't be out here right now. I've got to go. I just need a little bit of time to process this, because it happened at like 3 or 4 in the morning. So I remember being woken up and going over to the SOC and seeing it all unfold and hearing all the comms. I just remember sitting there just going, what the fuck has just happened? Like, and then, I don't think we got to bed till like late that night. So once all the boys came back, you got to go down and say goodbye. And then they get put, like, use a better term, Lord, is at the morgue or whatever, and after that, everyone said goodbye. They're never left alone. There's always someone standing at the front of the on guard, and we got asked if we wanted to, and I said, yep, 100%, we'll do. Like, how? Like, if you think about it, there's really no greater honour, really. So I remember that. I think I did the sunrise sit the next morning, or close to sunrise, because I remember standing there just thinking, like, looking out, you're in amongst all these containers, and you're standing at the front, there's like candles and that, and you're just like, yeah, like, really no greater honour to making sure that your mates are always with someone before they get put on the plane to go home. And then, yeah, after that, it was prep for the ramp ceremonies, all that. And I remember the funeral services at the base. That was, and then onto the plane, and we got stuck into the beers that night, but it was like pretty somber, compared to some of the other parties that sort of had their somber. And then from there, it was pretty much that platoon was combat ineffective, so they packed up and they went home with the boys so they could attend all the funerals, and that's probably where you sort of would have met everyone coming in from there. But the new platoon got rushed in to sort of, because the war goes on, the war doesn't stop. You don't get to, oh, Mr. Taliban, can you just stop and wait? You know, we're a bit upset here. It was, I think I stayed for another 3 or 4 weeks. I missed all the funerals. I don't know if I ever sort of regret that or not, but yeah, I remember. Yeah, I think I stayed for another 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that. Did a handover, made sure everything was sort of tidied up, and then I remember getting on the plane. I don't even think the Herc had taxied, and I was asleep. I was out, and then just woke up again in Dubai, which was a few hours away, few hour flight away. I don't think I slept that good in ages. I think it was all sort of started to catch up, and then got home, bit of time off. That was a hard trip to get home from, like mentally. Like it wasn't like physically I was in pretty good shape, but mentally the drain of that, you know, leadership, command, you know, always thinking about, did I make the right decision? You know, you tell them to, you know, turn left and something happens, you know, one of the boys gets hurt or, you know, inevitably dies. It's just not them that affects, you're affecting their family, their future kids, everything like that. So I think all that sort of built up. That was, like, I look back now and people tell me that I was cranky and I yelled heaps. But I'm like, if you ever had to fucking make a decision where the decision you made affects if someone's going to live or die, like, you know, that could, it's blown out of proportion a fair bit of the time. But, you know, there's decisions there about, like, for instance, who goes in what car? You know, the bloke I put in the car with the snipers, he's always out in front. He's got the most risk of being ID'd or, you know, like that. And looking at, you've got your best mates in the world and you're like, I need you to go and get in that car. And they just, boys just stand up and go and do it. But that decision I've made there and then, you know, affects the rest of that bloke's life. So that was a hard trip to come.
Yeah. Do you think that sat with you more than anything else?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, like, before deploying on the second Afghan trip, I met some of the blokes' families. I remember one of the mothers, when we said, oh, we got to get moving, she looked at me and she shook my hand, she gave me a hug and she whispered in my ear, if anything happens to my son, I'll hold you responsible.
Oh.
I was like, fuck. I was like, you know, I don't begrudge her for saying that, but, like, the enormity of those words, like, and that, I think that stayed with me across that whole trip. Like every decision I made, I was like, oh, you really got to remember. And then what happened on that first trip, you know, and as you said before, it was like a light bulb moment from that. Every decision made after that helicopter crash was, not saying I didn't think about all the decisions before that, but there was a lot more like, holy fuck, you're playing A grade down, mate.
Yeah, mate. I had I have very similar feelings to that chopper crash. I was in Lithgow, which is like Blue Mountain area in Sydney, and we heard something during the day that there was a chopper crash, right? Because we were on this exercise walking through. I can't even remember what the fuck we were doing, and we heard during the day that there was a chopper crash and potentially a couple died, and I'm just like, oh yeah, probably not my cousin. Wouldn't think it's Scott. And the sergeant we had, he actually had blokes over attached to mortars for 6 RAR. So he was like, well, I want to find out the names because I've got blokes over there. So I want to make sure it's not them. And then anyway, the names didn't come through. That was in the afternoon. We went to bed that night. I got woken up about 10 p.m. And you know how they're like, when everyone's out on an exercise, they're like, Private Bamford. Yeah. And it just echoes down. And they, you know, then everyone, next person says the next person.
Yeah.
And I've said it, and I'm like, yep, here. And then it just comes back with, pack your shit, you're going home. And I'm like, I know what's going on.
Yeah.
Because why would they be sending me home? I'm fit, I'm fine, everything's. Then I walked up to the top, seen my CO, and he's just like, you've got a cousin named Scott, and I just broke down. It's like getting, I explain it to people, like getting punched in the face and getting completely winded at the same time, but just without getting punched in the face. Like my breath got taken away from me. My knees went weak, and I actually dropped down to one knee, and I'm like, he's like, yeah, I couldn't even speak after that. So I got taken home. But mate, I actually remember seeing that platoon, obviously at Scotty's funeral. Mate, I'll never forget this to the day I die. I remember being after the funeral. My Auntie Pam and Uncle Ray wanted to speak to the guys that Scott with, so I got the whole platoon in, and my Auntie Pam said that, and just imagine, right? My Auntie Pam and Uncle Ray, me, I think my dad was in there, and a couple other people, and then there was just 30 SF blokes, all in suits, black and white, and they were just, you know what they're like. They're like, they're not normal humans. They're big guys. And my auntie said, I've lost one son today, but I just gained another 30. And mate, every single guy in there just started crying. And it was one of the craziest. Really? Yeah, it was one of the craziest moments I've ever had in my life, to watch like 30 grown alphas all just tear up from one lady's sentence.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember like sitting after the crash had happened. The boys are starting to roll back in from the platoon, and one of them come over to me and he just said, they went out doing what they loved, surrounded by their mates. No, you can't really ask much more than that, can you? You know, like that. Have you ever heard that poem by that warrior Tecumseh, where he says, when you get to your deathbed, make sure you go out singing your death song, and not sitting there regretting your life or whinging about the things you didn't do. Like, go out singing your death song. And I was like, now I sort of take a bit of solace that, they went out doing what they loved. They were with their mates. Tragic that it got cut short, but at least they, their names will be forever on the wall. Their name will live forevermore. Mine won't. That's sort of, now I look back at it. Sometimes, like, I get upset. Like, I haven't spoken about it in a little while. Not to this depth, but they got to go out doing, with their mates.
The coolest job in the world.
Mate.
Yeah, mate. I talked to a few of my friends about this as well. Guys that I went on the trip with, and we had an incident on the 29th of August where we had that green on blue. 3 guys died at Patrol Base Wahab. And one of my good mates, Corey Neal, was there, and he was a CFA at the time, so he was working on the boys trying to keep them alive. And he was like, mate, 20 minutes before the incident, morale was the highest it had ever been. We were having push-up contests, we were playing cards with each other, we were hanging jokes on each other. I mean, morale could not have been higher before they died. And I always like to, think as well that I think pretty much every Australian soldier that died over in Afghan, if you asked them 5, 10, 15 minutes before they died, did you want to be right there and then in that moment surrounded by your brothers? I think 100, all of them, every single one of them would have said, fuck yeah, I want to be there.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. Like, tooled up with your best mates, serving your country. Like, what do I say
now? There's no higher honour.
Oh, no. And there is, like I say today, like, it's apart from becoming a father, it is the greatest thing I've ever done in my life, is to lead Australian soldiers on combat operations. Like, you can't, like, I got to watch the pages of history be written, like, part of that global war on terror, like, I'm in the pages of history with some of the greatest men of our generation. There's not too many people that can say that, There's not too many people that can say, like, you've done every rank on operations, you've done, I've got, as I said to you before, I've got a front row seat to watch history unfold, and no greater honour. Nothing. But as I said, apart from seeing my daughter born, you know, like, wouldn't, as much as there's like been the hard times and it was upsetting going through that and then all that, I don't think I'd change anything, because that shaped who I am today and how I go about things. You know, didn't get everything right. Still don't get everything right, but you know, that's pretty cool fucking period. You know, like by the time I got to 21, you know, but by the time my third trip had been to Hawaii, I had mates back on the Gold Coast that hadn't finished uni.
Mate, I remember being the exact same. I was over to Afghan when I was 21, and mate, my military career was done at 23, and I had mates just getting out into the workforce.
Yeah. See?
And it was just a different, mate, it was a different world back then as well.
Yeah.
Being so young, I think as well, being like you were as well, like the male brain doesn't fully develop until it's 25. So going through a lot of that stuff when you're younger, you know, and it shapes who you are at such a younger age to develop you into the person you are. And not only that, your brain is still growing and developing to like a fully functioning man. And you're going through 100%. All this stuff. It's so hard to describe that for people that.
And that's why I think we have such with such a tight knit group of people. Like, I've had people sort of come into my circle of friends and they're like, you guys are like a different level. I said, you'll never meet a closer group of mates than guys who have deployed on operations and been through such adversity and struggles. You know, adversity breeds resilience. And like, yeah, the group of mates that I'm tight with now, people have come in, like I've invited work friends, come and have drinks, or guys I play rugby with, and they just go, you blokes are next fucking level. I said, yeah, well, you don't shove a group of 25 to 29-year-olds in Afghanistan and go through that and we not be close. Like, there is nothing that'll ever come between us. Nothing. Like, we survived war zones. You survive whatever gets thrown at us back here in this country. And that's like I absolutely love that I got to do all that kind of stuff with my best friends. Because you know, like, this might sound cocky or arrogant, but I really couldn't give a shit. I've done more in one lifetime than some people do, or some people do in 20 lifetimes, and I got to do it with my best friends, like my best mates. You know, that's the coolest fucking thing, I reckon.
Yeah, that's something that I always, you know, take with me forever and ever, is that to know that I got to serve and be a part of history, but then also I got to know some of the greatest men that have walked this modern earth. And, you know, you talk about warriors like Achilles, Hector, some of the great generals, Caesar, Pompey, all these guys. And then it got into the Genghis Khan era. Like, I got to walk with the Scotty Palmers. I got to walk with the Tim Applins. Do you know what I mean? I got to walk with those guys. They were guys that, you know, when you stood around them, you stood taller because you were next to them. And they just, you know, it was like whenever their foot hit the earth, you just felt like a bit of moral gravity move through you. Do you know what I mean? Like, I got to walk with those guys.
I've said before, I rode the coattails of great men. That's how I've got to where I've got today. That's why I'm sitting here talking to you, is because I got to ride their coattails. That's how I just see it as pure luck. Just lucky. It's the greatest men of our generation, and no one will ever tell me different. No one, like, no matter whatever walk of life you come from, like, we did some cool shit. That's why I love talking about it, like my little bit of it. But sometimes I get a bit upset that the general public doesn't fully know what went on, because there's some great stories of true heroes and what they went through to save their mates. You know, like you were just talking before about your mate was a CFA. Like, he was a CFA, he worked on his mates' Like,
he did everything he could. Did everything
he could. Yeah, and you know what? Unfortunately, they woke up that day and they were going to die. Really, not much that could happen. Same with Scott and Tim and Chucky and the loadmaster. That, the gods decided that day that they were going to go, but at least they, we said before, they went out, doing what they love, surrounded by the blokes that they love. And, one of the guys said to me, he goes, just be happy that don't be sad that he's gone. Be happy that you got to know them.
Yeah, I like that.
And I look at it now, like, how lucky am I? Like, not only did I get to serve with these guys, but I got to call them my friends. I got to sit and have a cold beer, watch the Reds play, talk shit, That. Like, I remember probably 1 or 2 days before Tim died, I remember I was sorting out tickets because I could get cheap tickets to Dreamworld or SeaWorld or something. And after the trip, he was taking his family to the Goldie. And I was sorting out cheap tickets for him to go to the theme parks. And as you said before, like, your mates were sitting around 15 minutes before everything went down. Morale couldn't have been higher. Like, sorting out tickets to a theme park, watching the Reds play. I think now too, also, I love rugby union and league, and I was, only stopped playing union up to last year, but every time the Reds are on, I think there's I've got a soft spot for every Australian rugby team, but I think I've got a more soft spot for the Reds because one of the last times I saw Tim and Scott alive we're watching the Reds play.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty lucky.
Mate, talk me through your second trip as well. You said that one was with your brother in 2012?
Yeah, so got back from the 2010 one, 2011, went and did some more promotion courses, fucked around, and then 8-9 got the warning order they were doing NTF 4, I think it was, or whatever they were up to at that point. And my little brother was in the unit, or 8-9, and he was in transport platoon, paved it his own way. Matty's a pretty strong-willed character. But then by that stage, I'd achieved everything I wanted to in the army, and I went to my OC, and I said, I've done 4 trips. There's one of the boys that's about to be posted out. He hasn't done any. I'm happy. I feel I've contributed to the army, to the country, to the overall global war on terror. I said, I'm happy to sit this one out. Like, I'm good. And I think it goes back to that light bulb moment where, I tempted fate a few times. And not that I was scared, but, you can only go so many times before your number's up, can't you? Like, if you're playing lotto, your number's going to come up sooner or later. So I was quite happy, was quite content just to sit back. And so they formulated the groups for NTF, and then I wasn't going. I was just going to stay back at home and do promotion courses. Then I was trying to get posted out. I was asking for Singo. I wanted to go down to the School of Tactics and instruct at heavy weapons. And then, got called in again. Special Operations Command sent out a warning order. They needed blokes to go and support Task Group 17. And they come, they said, listen, you've done it. The battalion's got to provide the majority of it. Would you like to go again? I just went, nah, fuck it, why not? They said this is the list of guys going, and some of them close mates did the first trip together. And I said, yeah, like, if they go, something happens to them, I'll never forgive myself. So yeah, jumped on. A bit of a different trip, that one. So got in, I was there's a lot of, so we got in, flew in just after Australia Day, so it was in the winter period, so the manning levels were low. So I went in and sort of took the role as the Special Forces Liaison Officer for Task Force Uruzgan. So just coordinated everything between our Special Operations Task Group, the ODA teams, the SEAL team that was there in TK, and everyone else is sort of the SEAL teams that had come up out of Kandahar, and they're like the CAG group, and the SBS guys that were sort of operating. When they'd come into the base, it'd all sort of get coordinated through myself. So I did the first couple of months of not only looking after the platoon and providing that mobility asset to the task group, but also doing that SFLO job. And that was like, holy shit. There's stuff that goes on that I have no idea. And once again, imposter syndrome. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? Down briefing a SEAL team commander on what fucking the Australian task force is doing. Not even very qualified. Scared of heights type thing. And that was, another imposter moment, but, had to pull your pants up, and fucking no one's gonna give you an easy pass, or, you're just this bloke. It's fucking, you got a job to do, mate. Get in, do your job, get down and brief the MTF unit. They've got to clear this, this movement box, because there's there's 2 teams of SAS guys coming in to get someone. You give them the job, get them the fuck out, or you're in the shit. And that was, once again, physically, that wasn't a very physically demanding trip. That was like mental, that one, because that was, doing the LO job, planning missions with my guys going out, doing jobs myself, all that kind of stuff. And then, had a couple of the dogs killed on that trip, and Blaine Diddams got killed on that trip as well. And he was you would have heard about RS, you would have heard about Mark Donaldson. I remember on my first rotation hearing this name Diddams, and just the way that the guys spoke about him. And so there was like SF guys, there's a couple of others, and then there was Dids. Like he was held in that high regard of just a fucking, like a warrior. And then for him to get killed, I remember just going, holy fuck. Like, if that can happen to him, and he's the best of the best,
and what can happen to me?
Yeah, exactly. And that rocked the task group, because he was, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Blaine and I didn't see eye to eye on a number of things, but always very respectful towards me. Saw each other in the gym, always had chats about stuff in the team room and stuff like that. Didn't see eye to eye on things, which is healthy. When that level of that man, that caliber of that man speaks and says, Jonesy, you're playing shit. Well, guess what? You're playing shit. It's time to learn a lesson here. And then the dogs getting killed as well. That was, I'm a big animal lover, and to see them, what a force multiplier they are, and how much that rocked the task group as well. That was sort of hard to deal with as well. It's like another, at the stage I was only 31. Fuck, it's a lot to, in charge of 21 guys over there.
Mate, what was it like deploying with was it your younger brother?
Yeah, so Matty was over there. Matty was with the mentoring task force.
Okay. Mate, was that 2012?
Yeah, 2012, yeah.
Was that middle of 12? Because, mate, I got there in fucking end of April, start of May.
He was over there at the same time. He went over before me, but come home. Yeah, before me as well. So I'll send you a photo. I got to...
I might have missed him then.
Yeah, probably the changeover. He was based out of TK. So if you were at one of the patrol bases, you might have flown in and gone. So Matty was doing all the, the resupply missions out to the patrol bases. And I remember I used to run in. We used to make an effort to catch up, and I'd be like, where are you going? Like, what's going on? He goes, we've got this going. And I remember going back up, and I'd always go to the intel guys up at the task group and go, listen, what's it like out here? What's going on? They're like, why? I go, like, my little brother's heading out. And I remember a couple of times I stopped going to ask, because I'd get really worried about him. He look after himself, very capable soldier, but once again, it's that, he's my little brother, I want to look after him, but, used to send out little, if he'd stay at the patrol bases and someone was going out to resup him, send him out like a water bottle that didn't have water in it. I'd be like, I'd write a letter. Open this when you're by yourself. And I remember, like, even now, like, he said a few times, he's like, we passed that around. I remember sitting there with my mates and we passed around this water bottle from my brother. There wasn't water. I'd send him out cartons of Red Bull or Tim Tams, because we had everything up there. Everything. And I'd send, jumpers, and if he was at, in the colder months. But I remember asking the intel guys about like the threat brief, because it was starting to work me up too much. And once again, it might sound selfish, but I was just like, that's my brother. Like, I don't want to know what he's getting into. Like, but I remember then, you know, there was heaps of stuff going on and back and forward, and saw him a fair few times at TK. And I remember down seeing, because he was about to head home, so I went down to sort of say goodbye. And as I was on my way down, someone asked me, they said, "Oh, listen, Matty and his mates we're going to present them with their AASM before they head home." He goes, "Would you like to present your brother with that?" And I was like, fuck, how good's that? You know, once again, there's not too many people that can say they got to present their brother with their AASM.
Yeah, that's
cool. I remember giving it to him, and we got a photo in front of the MTF sign. Still on my phone now. But once again, lucky, fortunate, privileged that, you know, there's not too many people that can say that they were on operations with their brother. And then, you know, he was a digger. I was a sergeant. You know, and I think it's quite big of his platoon commander as well, like, to give me that honour, because, you know, he commanded my brother on that operation. That's a right that he's got, but he gave it to me. So, yeah, it's so lucky.
Mate, that's a cool story. Oh, fucking, that's really cool, you know, because look, and you would know, realistically, anyone that you really deploy with actually become your brother afterwards. But to have it and to have a blood brother there that you grew up with side by side your whole life, got to be over in Afghan, then got to give him, you know, the medal for being over there. I don't know. It's just one of those moments you'll never forget, and it'll be with you forever.
Oh, 100%. And then seeing him go about his work as well, like, it's a proud brother moment. Like, him, you know, out there doing what he needed to do, you know, to get to the patrol bases, you know, moving a couple of Ks in 10 hours. Like, fuck that.
Oh,
like, I couldn't do that. Like,
I remember those
the
days.
mental fortitude of that bloke is phenomenal. I would have lost it. I said, fuck this. I just would have walked home. But time and time again, put his gear on and you just go again. Like, and to see him operate, and then to hear, like, because I'd always go and check in on him, not necessarily to him, and, you know, he might crack the shits with me, but I'd go around his back and I'd go to his platoon sergeant or his boss, or I'd go to because I was always down at their headquarters, especially with their SFLO role. I'd be like, "Oi, how's Matty doing?" They're like, "Fuck, he's doing good. He's stepping up to the plate." You know, because myself and my little brother have, you know, got ourselves into a fair bit of trouble with our mouths. You know, and he got himself into trouble, and he'll admit that as well. And there was doubts that if he was going to go or not. And then to hear him get overseas and just fucking turn it on, and not only represent our family name, like, because my brother laid the foundations, I improved on it, and then my little brother improved on it again. And to hear our name, our last name, get spoken in such high regard, you know, I was like, fuck yeah, well done, Matty. You know, Aaron set the platform. I like to think I put our name up there a little bit more, and then Matty finished it off for us and brought it home. Cool. So, honoured, privileged, you know, and it was good seeing him around, sort of keep an eye on him a little bit. Mum wasn't too impressed, but, you know, two of her boys in Afghan, but anyway, it's
mate, I want to move on to you know, post-military stuff, and I want to ask you a bit of a deeper question that, you know, I do ask. So, you know, I do ask a few people this, but and, you know, I like hearing their responses and that. But, you know, mate, do you struggle with, you know, day-to-day life now with some of the stuff that you've been through and seen in your military career?
Yes. Short answer, yes. I get really frustrated and pissed off really easy at people that whinge about the things that they get given in this country, and they've done nothing to deserve it. They don't know the sacrifices of the Anzacs, the sacrifice of the Anzacs, and then First and Second World War, Korea, Vietnam, you know, all that, and then what we went through in that global war on terror, and they sit here and like, oh, we want to put men in women's sports, or we want to fucking do this, like, you know, or I don't get enough money on the dole, give me more money. Like, fuck off. When was the last time you contributed positively to society? I think I let it get to me more than probably what it should. It's probably unhealthy, and I do get worked up, and yeah, I crack the shits pretty easy on that kind of stuff. But I was really lost when I got out of the military. Like I said it before, and I'll say it again. Like, I lost my identity. My identity for 13 years was military, army. Loved it, frothed on telling people that I was in the army and then to get out. And look back now, and it's really shit to say. I was just so like, what do you do now? Nothing, just stay at home dad. Where that's the greatest job I've ever had. I got to spend a couple of years at home doing everything for take my daughter to school and her sport, and I was an age manager at Nippers. I was a footy coach. I underestimated that, and I was lost. I thought at the time I was lost, when actually I look back and I should never have said that. I should never have acted like that, because that's the greatest job. You know, people sacrificed a lot to allow me to stay at home with my daughter and do that kind of stuff. I took that for granted, but I still struggle with stuff today. Like, especially coming into Anzac Day. I notice I'm a little bit more. I'm always temperamental. I'm always a cranky prick, but just find myself. I get sort of upset over, like, a couple of times tonight. I got a bit upset where, if we'd spoken 2 weeks ago, we'll just skip through it. But I think coming into Anzac Day and the significance of the day and how much people have sacrificed to allow me to be here, like doing what I'm doing, talking to you, my daughter's healthy and happy. I think it's it's really starting to, like, as I get older, the significance of it all sort of hits me a little bit harder.
Yeah, I agree. I think when I first got out of the military, Anzac Day didn't really mean too much to me, because I was a little bit probably like you, like you feel like you lose an identity, and this sounds so harsh to everyone else, because I don't want anyone to sound like what they do in normal life is insignificant, because there are farmers out there, there's accountants, and there's business owners or bricklayers or whatever, footy coaches, whatever they are, and they're contributing to society in a very powerful way, in a good way, and they're being a law-abiding citizen. But because I had the same sort of thing, people would ask me, and I was like, "What do you do now?" "Oh, nothing really." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when they asked me when I was in the military, it was like, yeah, I do this, I do that. And then when I got out, there was just this like,
lost your sense of identity.
Lost. And the more time that I've spent back from the military now, the more time I'm like, it's, that was just a part in my life. That was a small revolving door of life where I stood in some of the greatest shoes that I've stood in, and now it's time to move on. But it's okay also to be the person I am now,
100%.
Because I also have that back piece of who I was, and you never forget that. But it doesn't take away from what I am now, and also it doesn't take away from the farmer on that lives in Victoria or somewhere like that.
It's we've all got a piece to the puzzle. I think. It's once again really arrogant, but our piece allows them to have all their pieces. Like, I got mates who are farmers, and I look at what they do, and I'm just like, fucking wow. Like, wow. How do you do this? Like, but they're a piece to the puzzle, but our piece allows everything to happen. Because if we didn't take that fight to the enemy over there, I'd hate to see what this place would be like now.
Yeah, there's sacrifice behind everything, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I think sort of dealing with everything sort of comes like maturity as well. You just sort of get a bit older.
Definitely. I was just about to say that. Like, especially for me, as I get older now, like, I find it like easier to get more emotional right now, like with things as well. And Maybe because there's a thing in me at the moment where I don't like suppress emotions. I actually, if they come to me, it's like, well, I can deal with this. I don't have to just put it away and be a man about it. Now I can feel those emotions, move through them, and like it's okay to do that around the Anzac Day. I get a similar sort of thing when I seen you talking before as well. I'd like a little tear in my eye as well, because
like the national anthem, mate. Hearing the national anthem, like, that I get a tear in my eye because that song has played at every one of the funerals, you know, and it gets me to this very day. Like, and also, like, on that thing you said before, like, as maturity as you get older, like, if I get upset and I have a bit of a cry, I really don't care anymore who sees it. Whereas, you know, I said to you before, I got upset overseas and I was like, I don't want people to see me being upset. Whereas now, like, you know, I got upset a couple of times tonight, and it doesn't really faze me. Like, I don't. If someone was to write a comment and says, "Oh, you're crying," I'm like, I don't give a fuck, mate, because I think I deserve the right to have a cry whenever I want, and I'm just not crying over stubbing my toe. Well, I do, but like we get upset and we get emotional because of like the things that we've done for this country and the sacrifices people have made.
Mate, we're going to start wrapping this up because it's about 8:30 at night where I am, so it might be 9 o'clock where you are.
Yeah, fuck, I don't even know. Yeah, and I've got to be up at 3.
Yeah. So let's start wrapping this up. There is one question I have for all my guests. So if you could give your 18-year-old self one bit of advice about life, what would it be? Sorry, I should have gave you this question before the before the podcast started.
Be kinder to yourself. Don't be as hard on myself as what I was. I think like everything was going to be all right. Everything will work out. Just be a little bit kinder, like to yourself, like to myself. Like, and I'm still hard on myself now. But yeah, just looking back, if I'd just been a little bit kinder to myself, I think that's everything will be all right.
Definitely,
Probably,
mate. Definitely. Well, look, Simon Jones, mate, I thank you for your for how open you were and how vulnerable you were as well. You know, mate, it fucking takes a man to do that. So, mate, thanks for jumping on Two Worlds Collide podcast, and I can't wait to release this episode.
Thank you, mate. Thanks for having us.
That wraps up this episode. If you enjoyed it, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and follow. It really helps out our channel. If you're listening on a podcast platform, a quick review goes a long way. And don't forget to share the episode, tag your friends, and drop a comment. I always appreciate your feedback and love hearing your thoughts. Until every voice is heard.